I've got a couple handouts for you, but like I told Bob the other day too, we wanted to come down and talk to the governing body. And in order to do that, we had to do our meeting last night to get authority from the city council to come down and do that. So that's kind of why there was a little bit of a delay. Just got a handout for you.
Want me to do a timeline?
What's that?
Timeline?
Yeah, please. So, we've been kind of watching the train coming down the track, kind of on the building project. We're very pro school. We're very pro development, right? And we want to see the city continue to grow, and we want to be helpful where we can be helpful, right? What you got in front of you there is actually done from Ryan Fotts. He's kind of our expert on a lot of that. That is a timeline in case there is, and again, like I told Bob here the day, I have not seen a building plan. In fact, no one at City has had one delivered. So we understand you've got a timeline, so we want to kind of offer some help. We are not planning and zoning, by the way. So when you guys are talking building, you're going to be talking with like Ed Wilson and some of those people. It's not our decision. That's on them. But we wanted to get a jump on it. Since we hadn't heard from anybody here, we decided we would come down, and then we had some stuff maybe we could offer. So on the timeline, if you look, well, let me ask you this: when are your plans to start construction?
I'm going to Steve Jestrom is our lead architect on the project. Steve, you want to address that?
Sure, I can give it an approximate. With the bids that the Baltic School Board has awarded, it takes a contractor over a month to get their performance bonds and all that together. And realistically, of course, they won't start digging ground till the frost is out. Usually that's April 1st. This year, who knows? But I would see that they, once they have a signed contract, that they would want to come down and apply for a permit, probably in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
But then they really wouldn't, the permit, they won't start digging ground until probably April 1st.
Very good. And I've heard you're going to need some variance, correct? I don't know if everybody's aware. So Bulldog Avenue is actually a city street, right? So there is setbacks and things like that that pertain to that. When you're going to go down planning and zoning, if there is infringement up on that street, right, you guys are going to have to apply for variance. That's just the way the code works, right? And there's a process for that, and that's kind of the timeline outline of how that goes. The next gathering for planning and zoning is the 22nd. So if it's time's important to kind of get things moving, we would kind of urge you to get that down there now, and as soon as possible, just so that you can start.
We actually got a call today for the permits for the water and sewer hookups, but we couldn't have the conversation because we hadn't even seen the building plan yet, so we didn't know what was necessary for the hookups. So we let them know that and said we're happy to consider it as soon as we have that. It's all a part of that process. So
with that being said, the meeting is, they've got a planning and zoning meeting on the 22nd, so that's just next week. If there's going to be a variance request, that would have to be addressed on March 3rd, and in a published legal paper.
Here, let me explain that.
I'll probably.
Can you get them a copy?
Yeah, I'll get you a copy of it. So really how the process, understand, or how it's been explained to Brian and I, is that at the planning and zoning meeting, someone comes and says, hey, we have this, this is kind of what we want to do. We suspect we may need a variance. Bob and I talked very briefly this afternoon about how the building is abutted up to Bulldog Avenue at a 0 setback. In the zoning regulations, it says it needs a 25-foot setback, so that would warrant a variance. The way that the zoning regulations are written is that you need to prove a hardship to get a variance. And so what it says, what is it, 17.02?
Yeah. School district would need to show an unnecessary hardship to request a variance. Covenants, convenience, loss of profits, financial limitations, or self-imposed hardships shall not be considered as grounds for approving variance by the Board of Adjustment. That is City Ordinance 17.04.
And so we were getting concerned because we hadn't seen plans, but we'd seen it, the plan in the foyer, with there being a 0 setback. We were concerned that it may not qualify as a hardship. That's not our decision to make. We just wanted to help you guys understand what the process is, because the city needs to review that, and there needs to be communication. And since Bob was so great to encourage communication, we thought it would make sense for us to be here so we could all be on the same page about what the process is. There's another thing that was noticed when our city engineer looked at the school, is he noted that Bulldog Avenue is a city street, and in our ordinances, city streets say that all parking is parallel, and that there's only 2 streets that are allocated for the diagonal parking. And what was that, on 2nd Street and St. Olaf Street, and then what was the other one? There was 2 that were listed on
72.05.
Yeah, that's, oh, here it is, sorry. It says 2nd Street Business District and St. Olaf Avenue between 1st and 3rd Streets are the only streets that are allowed to be diagonal. So right now, as the school is using the parking spots, it's in violation of ordinances. And it's not that we are trying to create an issue, we're trying to resolve the issue, is what we're doing. We're seeing these things, so we wanted to come and have time to be able to find solutions to these things.
And honestly, that'd just be something you guys would talk about with plans.
Yeah, and so we're just making you aware of these things because we're under the impression that you're not aware. That's why we wanted to make sure that you guys understood the rules we're looking at, so that way you guys can talk to planning and zoning about getting that done. And so when we were estimating that on a expedient time zone, or timeline, if you guys came to planning and zoning next week, and then we have to publish the variance, and so that means we have to have the permit basically Wednesday to get it published the following Friday. And so then that would put the soonest publishing date we could do is March 3rd. And then that means the soonest public hearing we could have is March 13th. And so we're beholden to that process when it comes to a variance, should that be the route you want to choose. And so we just wanted to help you understand that there's timelines. It's not as simple as us just going, oh yeah, just go ahead and do that. So there's some processes there, and we wanted to make you aware of that. Yeah, so it's 10 days to a public hearing, publishing deadlines, that kind of thing. So should you want a variance? And here's that sheet for you. So you have that? And so between the parking and the setback issues, we thought it would be prudent for you guys to be a little more prepared when we go to planning and zoning, whoever goes to planning and zoning. Now, we do have some solutions if that is something, we're not sure if your building will qualify for a variance, is really what this comes down to. And so, because there was no preliminary discussion, we had to meet the ordinances. And that's not our decision to make, we're just preparing you for that. So we had also talked as a council last night to come up with some solutions that would allow you to just keep your plans as is and to be able to move forward, because we want the school as bad as we do. And so we thought, what is something that we can do as a city to help the school, so that way we can just make this as smooth of a process as possible.
Here's what we came up with.
You want me to hand that out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you want to give it a
Yeah.
So we're gonna throw it out and just let you guys discuss this. So we could gift the school Bulldog Avenue in a land trade for the property across the street over here. So, for instance, on that frontage property, that is it's kind of a, if you look at the map there on the excuse me, the top corner, right? So this would be Lovely Avenue. Okay. The blue highlighted is school property. The stuff we left on that first block in I guess I'd call it a yellowish is city. So there's kind of a mix there, right? So what we'd like to see is offer a land trade for the complete section there, right? And then also the next section, which is basically the old football field, right? If you've been downtown on St. Olaf, when you're coming down to the end of there is a big pipe right there, says something about the park.
Nordic field.
Nordic field, yeah,
Mhm.
right. Okay, so that is actually plotted as a through city street. Okay. Could you run us through city street through there right now as it sits? No. In order to make a through city street, we would have to raise Fourth, right, and drop Olaf. So it really puts these few properties as prime commercial opportunity. And I think we've kind of all discussed between the city, and I think the school too, that we want more of this in our town, right? Whether say like the football field is, say, an apartment complex, or some sort of other business, you know, same thing with the frontage, whatever it might be.
And we have developers looking at, you know, when we drive through Baltic, we had kind of, and Bob, I had mentioned this to you before when we met, that, because I think Bob had come to us and said, would you ever consider vacating St. Olaf? And then, you know, absorbing that by the school, and I said, well, what would happen if we had a developer and they would want, you know, some of that land, and he's like, well, no one's ever asked it for it, and I'm like, well, you know, maybe we have that opportunity. And so from a city standpoint, when you come into town and you turn on 4th Street, and you could turn left and go to the school, or you could turn right and go to Main Street, that would be a fantastic entry point for Main Street. To come in and then you add another block, it makes the parades amazing, because you come all the way through, and then you can go right into Bulldog Avenue, and it allows commercial property to be on both sides. With that property that the school owns currently, first it, you know, adjoins the tennis courts, like we had talked about before, about who should take that, what that should look like. But also with the bus barns and the football field, that creates a very optimum commercial property to develop. So, I mean, as the BADF president, would you not agree that that would be high visibility off of Lovely, turning into Main Street? It would be really a great piece of land for us to be able to develop as a city. And anyone that wants to come in to do commercial development, that would be a spot that would be ideal. And so it's not something that we could do tomorrow. It's not even something we could do next year. It's more future development of Baltic. This is something that is an opportunity. And since we're dealing with the school and we're thinking of the future of Baltic, we thought this was the prime opportunity to come talk to you and say, hey, what if we did this?
I guess in my mind, it appears, and it appears it has the potential to be a win-win. Right?
Definitely.
So you're getting finished ground through the parking lot. The work is done. We are technically getting a little bit more square footage, honestly, but it needs to be graded, right? It needs to be, the land needs to be prepared for use. Right? It gives the city an opportunity for tax base. And if it's whether it's rentals, whether it's, it could be anything. So there's a gas station on the corner, whatever that might be. It's revenue for the city. It's also revenue for the school. So there's a possibility of that becoming a win-win. And I think this is a way we could potentially work together to kind of develop our city. You know, the more, we've talked about this before, the more rooftops we have here in town, the more affordable the cost of the taxes are for growth.
And commercial sales tax base helps all of us.
Commercial is something we just need more of. We've got some inbound. We're hoping once that seal breaks, we're gonna get some more. We just need somebody gets it started, right? And the ADF is working on that. So we're hoping that it starts a ripple. And it would be nice to get more commercial, obviously, to take the tax burden off a homeowner, put some more on some commercial property. That's a win for everybody as well.
Do you guys have questions? Go ahead.
Well, I just want to be clear.
Sure.
Because not that you intentionally skipped over, but I want to make sure.
Sure.
So you're proposing to give us Bulldog Avenue.
Yep.
And in lot 12, we give you 2 and 3.
Yep.
And in
And there's
lot,
like part of 7 in that, but then
and-
technically 2.
yes, yep. And then in lot 11, we give
Yep.
you 2 through 9. The one right south of lot 12.
So
And then lot
basically,
11.
everything we've got highlighted in blue, so it would be, yes, 11 through 17, we have 18 already as the city, right?
Yep.
The next block on
Would be
10
the football field.
would be the football field. And then there's a little just an odd cut piece, there's 2 little sections and then a jog over where the water tower sits.
Right.
And we weren't really, there was really no purpose to that, but we just thought if we were gonna do a broad sweep, we might as well just do it all, make it easy.
Yeah.
You know,
And if you can imagine right where that football field is, that's where that road would come through. We'd grade that down, 4th Street would grade up. Now on your end, it caused an issue for you, right? Bus barns, okay? That's right here. But if the road comes up to meet that, right? Which is gonna have to be done at some point. Is it gonna be able to be usable space for a bus barn?
well, we understand that if we're gonna raise 4th Street, if the bus barns are still there, we have to accommodate the entrance of the bus barns. So we understand that. But how we're looking at it is we're anticipating 4th Street would be more productive to raise 4th Street higher than the entrance of the bus barns, which is why we were gonna ask for the bus barn land, because then it allows us the flexibility to do what we want there.
And this is not a rush,
No.
for instance, on that bus barn, it's gonna be a while before this dirt work could actually happen. So, in the meantime, we would rent you back the bus barn for like $1 a year.
So you can use it,
Yeah, I mean,
you know, until we do the project.
right.
Okay. I was confused, so now I want to really clarify.
Sure.
Sure.
So not only are you're proposing over here that we give you all of our property, including what our bus garage is sitting.
Correct.
That is correct.
Yeah, and the field right there, right between, basically where the school would, street would run through right between the 2 on each side.
So we give you Bulldog, you give us everything on the east side of 4th Street.
The win for getting Bulldog is, you don't have to go through variance.
No, not at all. It's yours.
We don't have any property where would we move our bus barn to?
You know, we talked about that. We were looking at your land and we saw a couple of opportunities, but it's not for us to tell you where we thought it would be plausible to put it. And that was another reason why we thought, well, it's probably gonna be a couple of years before we can do this kind of a project anyway, so it would give you a couple of years to kind of figure out where that would go. But our engineer suggested that there was a couple of different places that you could put it, but it would just, it's for you to decide.
Yeah, that was a bit of a rhetorical question, I guess. But, you know, then also the cost associated with, you know, we just
Correct.
put up a building that was $100,000 and that's a small portion of what we have there. So the cost that associated with that. I guess also the cost of, you know, maintaining Bulldog Avenue. You know, we would be responsible
So-
for the asphalt maintenance, snow, and so on at that point.
That would be correct.
Yeah. I did bring that point up to Ryan,
Mhm.
City, and I said, you know, Ryan, how hard is it? Would it be like, it's easier to work with the snow removal and stuff like that? He said, it'd be no problem. So as far as the snow removal portion of that Bulldog Avenue, it would be as it is today.
It's just a matter of making an agreement. I mean, if you guys don't have the equipment to do it, then we can certainly figure something out. It's not, we're not trying to create a hardship for the school.
Right.
We're literally trying to find a solution. And we thought, well, geez, if they just had Bulldog Avenue, then none of this would be an issue. And so we thought, well, what would be a win-win here? And that was what we came up with. As far as the bus barn goes, do we?
Yeah, so we would also come up with some funds to help the movement of the buildings, or the concrete work, or whatever you want to use.
Yeah, because we talked about the buildings, you know, like if you wanted to just move the buildings, you know, we wouldn't need the buildings. And so if you wanted to move those, then it would be your structure to have. We just wanted the land, is what we were doing.
And again, it's a proposal.
Yeah, this is just for discussion.
This is discussion. There's no pressure. We have zero influence. I have nothing to do with planning and zoning. just
Nope.
so you know.
Not at all. We just as a council wanted to come and say, you know, we can kind of see that this might be there might be some hiccups along the way, and so what could we do to create a win-win situation?
So when you talk hiccups, are you kind of suggesting that we might not get a variance? Is that kind of what you're
No.
suggesting?
We don't know, that's the issue.
Okay.
We don't know.
You know,
Is there any
and if I can go
exemptions
back
for
just a little
government
bit.
entities?
What's that?
Is there any exemptions for government entities? working
Schools
with-
fall under R1, and
Okay.
so under R1, it's a 25-foot setback, and those parallel parking laws are in the ordinance
Can you
as is.
explain what R1 stands for?
R1 is residential one, and so it's if you go into zoning regulations, it's the kind of, every property in the city of Baltic or in any municipality is under a zone.
Okay.
And so, under schools, it's in R1.
And it's been that way for,
Ever,
okay.
ever.
So we must have gotten a variance when we
You know, it's
built
funny,
in the
we don't
past?
have any record of it.
You know, Steve, you wanna say something?
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, even in preparation for the planning and zoning meeting coming up, that, you know, there's been 3 buildings built with 0 setbacks. You know, first one was the original high school.
Sure.
That there would have had to have been something at that time.
Sure.
And probably it would have been like a variance, or then there has to be a record of that. Normally in other municipalities, that variance stays with the property. And so the original high school was built that way, and then there have been 2 additions since the same way. That there must have been some record somewhere that was approved.
You know, as far as I know, and we can dig further, we can definitely dig
Yeah.
further. As far as we know, we don't have any record of a variance. And one thing that I'm learning in municipalities, there really is no such thing as precedence. You know, just because because of previous administration or there was something that was done before, if there wasn't something that, you know, if there wasn't a documented variance or that type of thing, we can only deal with the ordinances and the regulations that we have in place. So that's what we did. We looked at all of the zoning regulations, we looked at the ordinances, and we're like, okay, we have to take them on their face value. That's why we're here today.
Would you have anything on that from your original building plans back in the day? You think, possibly? I don't know.
Yeah, if you can find something, you know, that would be a wonderful thing to
I don't
bring
know
to
if there's a
planning and
file on
zoning.
that or something.
Yeah, I don't know how variance and precedences, I don't know how that works, that's outside of my realm, but
Yeah.
if you have any documentation, we were unable to locate any at City Hall.
You know, if you look at, I guess the comment I would make, if we have our architect here, I think the plans were made probably with some, maybe assumption is the wrong word, but the fact that there were 3 different projects with 0 setback probably made them think that it would not be a problem to have 0 setback again. And then the other option, the other issue of the parallel parking, where we currently have perpendicular parking, since no one has ever said anything about that, why wouldn't, we would just assume once again that perpendicular parking would be okay. You know, which is our plan.
Sure.
You know, let's face it, we're a long ways down the road now.
Right.
So.
Which is why we're here, because there was documentation showing that the school was in communication with the previous administration readily. They participated on planning committees, and there was preliminary plans in, I think even sent back in February, and then for whatever reason, communication ceased. So we're coming here in the spirit of open communication and making sure that we're all working on solutions, and just trying to put our best foot forward to come up with a solution that's best for Baltic, both in the short term, so you guys can build your school, and in the long term, in, you know, commercial development. That's what we're here to do.
And it could be a smooth transition, Bob. It could be a smooth transition, but there's a process, and that's why we had Ryan put that together for you, just so you can see the timeline, right?
I think we're
The
also
advantage-
trying to locate a authorized official that has expertise in school building plans. We're trying to evaluate who we can use to review the plans when we actually do receive them. And so there's been some, the city staff is working on that. I don't have anything to do with that, but they're trying to find somebody that they feel has experience and have been qualified, because it's an important building. We want to make sure it's done correctly.
And the land trade, that was just something we thought we would present and offer. And if it's something you consider, or even consider portions of, just you talk and you let us know.
Yeah, it's open forum.
Yeah. nothing happens unless somebody asks for it. I'm sure this is probably something you're gonna wanna talk about, obviously.
Yeah, I would
And,
guess.
yeah,
so.
you're not gonna give us an answer on anything tonight. Just to give you a heads up, we do, our next meeting is next Wednesday. If there's stuff you wanna talk about, so you can certainly get in there too.
Yeah, you can come back and talk to us.
Right.
If you wanna do
Yeah.
that, and
And then, that's it, planning and zoning is on 22nd, so you can get in something.
we just figured since we,
So
we're
is
funded
that
by
planning and
tax.
zoning and the city council meeting
That's what we're gonna
on
do.
the 22nd?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
we're doing a
do.
special session,
Okay.
unrelated to this, by the way.
Yeah, it's other things we have to get done.
Steve, who goes for the building permit, the contractor? Contractor will apply for the building permit.
Correct.
Yep.
And he will ask for the variances, or he will not ask for the variances at that time?
No, we can apply for the variance here at the next week's meeting, we'll do that. We'll go through that process. We're prepared to do that.
And let's just say we're denied the variance, then can we slide the building back?
It won't fit on your property. I mean, I can tell you now the hardship, there's a huge hardship. You're not gonna be able to build the building you wanna build. You can't, physically can't. There's not enough room to the south.
How much is, how much, just out of curiosity, how much property is that south?
So we go south with allowing an expansion right up to the property line to the south. So, it just wouldn't really, it wouldn't really work.
So you can understand why we wanted to come talk to you.
Yeah. At least you have a heads up now. I mean,
Yep.
nothing else comes of this. You have a heads up of what it takes for planning and zoning, in the city process. Not that I wouldn't love to do some land swap there with you guys. I would love to
We
do that.
definitely would love the land
I would love
swap.
that. And I truly believe increased commercial business in this town will help feed both the city and the store.
All right,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna move on.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate the time and
Yeah.
the opportunity to come down.
Thank you.
Thank you.